Okay, so what I'm going to show you is how to do a swap, a swap of animations and TMB files in the Visual Effects Editor. Specifically, there's two tools in the Visual Effects Editor called the PAP Editor and the TMB Editor. So I'm going to start by pulling up the Visual Effects Editor. And up here at the top, you see two buttons. There's TMB and PAP. So what I'm going to do is, right now I have a version of Garuda for Ifrit and Titan that doesn't have animations for the attacks, animations for the special pop, or TMB files for the attacks. Well, it has a TMB file, but the TMB file is currently Ifrit's TMB file and Titan's TMB file. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with the animations. To show you what I'm working with baseline right now. Now I did this on purpose. Normally I would probably do a swap in the in text tools, but I figured I'd set this up so that I could go ahead and do this video and get this out of the way. So right now, what I have, and I'll just hide this real quick. Right now for Ifrit, here she is, all fucked up. Yeah, so she's all messed up. Same with Titan. Yep. But as you can see there at the end, she idled and disappeared just fine. So how do we change this? Well, I'm going to start with the PAP editor. In here, it looks a lot like the Visual Effects Editor. You've got your search fields here. I'm going to take the animation files I have for her, or that I've saved. These are the file paths that I have saved for, or for all of the summons. And so I want to use Garuda's files. Let's start with Ifrit. So I'm going to take this, copy it. I'm going to paste it into the path, select, and do it again for Ifrit's file, copy, paste. Okay, so there's Garuda's animation. This is the animation 1. As you can see, there's a lot of settings in here that may not be easy to figure out. You've got tracks, you've got parameters, you've got actors. The main thing we're looking at is this code right here. This determines, this is like the true name of a file that I mentioned in a previous video. So this is the animation code. If I hit new here, there's a lot of options. And to be honest, most of them I have no idea what they do. There's voice lines, I don't know how to use those. There's visual effects. There's actually 2 visual effects settings here. No clue what some of them do. I have gotten into the summon weapon and summon animation, but that's not for right now. So right now, all we're going to work with is the PAP file. So I've copied Garuda's file to Ifrit's. Now I'm going to set it up. In the meantime, I'll open Documents, create a new one. I'm going to do the same thing with Titan's PAP file. So I'll copy Titan's. Now I'm using the gem summons to demonstrate this because they all have SP01. All 3 of them only have one animation ability. It's SP01, so it's really easy to swap them. If you had an animation that didn't match, you would just edit this. So like you might edit it to SP02, SP03, and you have to edit it in both spots. Like if I made this 02 and I made this 02, you have to edit them both for the animation to function. If you just edit one, it doesn't work. So change that to SP, keep that as SP01. Open this, update it, SP01. So these animations are temporarily swapped in the game. So now I hit 3. Oh, I must have messed up her monster file. But that's fine. I'll fix that here soon. I also messed up that one, I guess. Oh, wait. Never mind, I haven't done the special pop files. So let's do the special pop files real quick. Same thing. So I pull up my files here. I pull the special pop. I'm going to put that in here. Select. Yep, wrong one. And then I'm going to do ifrits. Put it here. Go ahead and get this set up. And then do Titans. But as you saw, the attack animation was working. So now I'm going to select these, update, open this, update, and now let's do this again. So now she's working. Her depop is still messed up, but I'll handle that in a moment too. And then hit number 5. Alright, so that looks good. Now, let's handle the depop file. So for monster files, since the depop is in the monster file, I'm going to pull her file here, pull this here, and then I'm pull ifrits. Put that there. Alright, update. Okay, so for ifrit, he only recognizes DED code. So you have to remove this and put it here. So I copied it. I'll change the visual effects in a moment too. Copy it, paste it there. So now the despawn animation should be fixed. And then we also need dead pose. So copy. As you can see, dead pose animations are very short durations. They just loop. So let me set this in again. I think what the case was for Titan is I accidentally kept the monster.pap file, which is fine. I had an edited version for it, so it just played like normal. But just to show you, I'll do it for Titan as well. Keep pulling up the wrong one. There we go. So let's do Titan. Alright, update. Same thing. DED. Oops. DED. And then, oh, there is a dead pose animation. Oh, was there already one here? Yes, there was. So this is going to cause a conflict. So all I need to do is change the DED 1 to just DED. Update. Alright, so we've got our death, or our despawn animation, and we've got dead pose in there. Make sure that's copied there, and make sure that was done here. Alright, so now, press 3. Zoom out some. So there she did her dead pose. Again, Titan. So as you can see, she's currently using Titan and Ifrit's visual effects because she still has their TMB files. But before I jump to that, I'm going to fix some animation bleed over. So if you noticed in the DED file here, I have visual effects here. And 7108 indicates that they're still using Garudas, but they're using it on Titan, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my handy dandy sheet that I've saved all these file paths in, and I'm going to switch those files to Titan and Ifrit's respectively. And I'll get to why I'm doing this in a moment. So I'm going to start with this one. So 0K1, and I will replace 0K1 here. If there is one, why is there no... Did I already replace one? I think I already replaced one somewhere. Okay, so there's 71017. Except I put that on Titan, so let's switch to Ifrit. So, yeah, I must have replaced one at some point. So I'm going to change this to C0K1. They play almost at the exact same time anyway, so it's not a big deal. And then I'm going to use this one, C1K1. Alright, so those visual effects are now Ifrit's Depop visual effects. I'm going to do the same thing here. And I will get to Y and once I finish it, once I get this done. Okay, Topaz Titan only has one. So I'm only going to replace the one. And then I'm going to remove this. So now, I'll do a setup here. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the special pop files as well. So for special pops here, I'll just use the Visual Effects Editor. I apparently did not save those visual effects. So let's start with Titan. I can pull the special pop files here, or the special pop and visual effects right here. So here's Titans. I just copied it. And I'll open up the one for Titan here. So there's the visual effect for Titan. It's currently Garuda. I'll switch that to Titan. And now I'm going to just go ahead and pull up Ifrit on this one since I'm currently working with the animations. So I'm going to choose see if you see SP pop right there, that's your special pop file. That's your special pop visual or AVFX file. So I'm going to minimize that again. Come back here, go to Ifrit's. There's the one animation. So now we've got the special pop for Ifrit and Titan in the places where these two are for Ifrit and Titan. So now here's what it's going to look like. So as you saw there, it used Ifrit's visual effects. And that's what I want at the moment. Same thing for Titan. Okay, now I'll show you why I want that at the moment. So I'm going to come back here into the Visual Effects Editor. And I'm going to go and open Documents to keep a list here. And I'm going to just search Garuda to pull up the summon. I'm going to start with Ifrit first. So Ifrit has these death pops, or death animations, or death visual effects. So you have that, and that's the one I want to replace specifically. So this one. Okay, so choose that one and select this one, update, and then I'm going to start setup for the next demonstration here. Alright, now do the special pops and choose Ifrit special pop. So now what I have is Garuda's visual effects copied over Ifrit's visual effects here. And the same thing for this Depop visual effect. Now, here's what she looks like when she's summoned as Ifrit. So as you saw there, now she has the visual effects of the special pop and the visual effects of the Depop animations for Garuda, but using Ifrit's file paths. This is really important for preventing bleed over of visual effects from one ability to another, so that you can have mods that can be interchanged. So if you had a mod that was editing Garuda's visual effects, but you didn't fix the bleed over, those changes to those visual effects would bleed over into your Ifrit mod and your Titan mod and all that. So I'm going to now repeat the process with Titan. So here's Titan's files, and choose Garuda's death animation or death visual effects, or Depop. I keep calling it death, but it's Depop. So add another one, select, update. That's probably, you might hear my husband in the background. He's playing D&D at the moment. So now, here's what Titan looks like. So you saw there, the visual effects are now Garuda's, but they're on Titan, and they're using Titan's visual effect files. So now, the animation files are all dealt with. So now I'm going to open the TMB editor. So the TMB editor is really good, is pretty much where you'll go for editing ability animations for the most part. Most special pops, most depops, those usually have visual effects within the animations themselves, not the TMB files. You won't find TMB files for special pop or depop animations. So you have to edit the visual effects within them. So now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to edit the TMB files for Titan and Ifrit. So currently, I don't really need to edit them, but I'll show you what they look like. So if I did, let's go ahead and edit them. I'm going to use Garuda's TMB files. That's what I'm tripping myself up. So Garuda, and as you can see, it's not here, but I have her file saved, or her file path saved here. So I'm just going to enter it into the game path search here. So yeah, see, it pulled it up. Of course it recognizes it, but sometimes a file's just not in the editor, so you have to kind of dig for the for the file path. So we've got Garuda's TMB file on Titans. Part of the reason I'm also using Garuda's TMB file is to get the timing. So I want to copy the timing from that file to Ifrit, and to Titans. So let me set this up. So if you look in this file, you'll find the animation code, again, SP01. You got the fly text, a little loud there. So you've got the fly text, which usually indicates when the numbers on your screen show up. So if I change this, it changes when the numbers show up here. Got your visual effects file. So here's a shoot. This is what's called a shoot visual effects file. 99 times out of 10, I know what I just said. 99 times out of 100, I should say, I remove these. I don't like these. They bleed over too much. It's too easy for another mod or modder to edit them, not realizing that it's a common file and it's shared between so many different animations and visual effects that will cause it can cause bleed over very easily through multiple different files. So either do not edit them ever or remove them is usually removing them is usually my go-to, but I'm just going to leave it for now because I don't feel like it. So as you can see here, we've got Garuda's, here's her sound. So here's sound. This is what a sound setting looks like. You might find this code 18181. I don't know what this means. I have no idea. If you ask me, I'll pull a blank. Sometimes it's this number, sometimes it's just a 1. Who knows why? I have no idea the reason, but that's just what it is. Other things you can find in the TMB file as well. Again, you can find some in weapon, some in animations. You can add visual effects, you can add sound. Pretty much a lot of things. You'll also sometimes find animation lock settings. Do not mess with those because that is very detectable by Square Enix. So here's the other visual effects. So what I've done here is, so far is I've copied the TMB files of Garuda onto Ifrit and Titan. Mind you, they're still using Garuda's visual effects, but I'll just show you what it looks like for now. So there's Garuda. She seems complete, but she is not. If I ended it here, there would be major visual effects bleed over if I just left it. If something ever were to edit Garuda onto Titan. So the reason why I used her TMB file, again, is for the timing. The timing's already set in here, and the sound set to 0, so maybe I didn't sound set to 0 again, but the timing. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace these file paths in order to prevent visual effects bleed over. So I'm going to pull up Ifrit up here and start grabbing his visual effect files. And I try to keep it where it's where I keep the codes here the same as the ones I replace, as close to as I can, because it just makes finding them easier. So I've got C01K, I'm going to copy this, and that was for Ifrit. I'm going to come back here, go to the one I set for Ifrit right here. I'm going to replace C01K with that one. Alright. I'm not replacing the sound file. Sound files are universal. They're not what is it? They're not limited to that one creature. You can move a sound file wherever you want, pretty much. Unless, of course, you use a mod that edits the sound file, then you're on your own, pretty much. So here's I moved Ifrit's visual effects into there. And I'm going to do the same with Titan's visual effect files, these AVFX files. Copy, pull up the TMB editor, open Titans, go in here, and replace. And then do the same thing with the target. So yeah, I always assume C means the caster, T equals target. Seems a pretty straightforward naming and numbering convention to me. And I'll replace that. So there's 7109. So now I'll do the setup again. And I'll just demonstrate what this is going to look like once again. So now it's going to seem like I took a step backwards. But really I didn't. Well, you'll see why. So here's it again. As you can see, you heard her sound, the sound that she normally plays with Ifrit's visual effects there. Same thing here. So it looks like I messed the visual effects up, but I'm doing this on purpose. So I'm gonna pull up Garuda again and find her summon file and select C01K and replace here C01K since I put that in Titans, and start a new one and select T01 or 0K1. Why did I say 01K? T0K1 update. And then start a new one. I'm gonna go ahead and set up the demonstration for the next. So start a new one. Again, now I'm going to search Ifrit. And I'm going to choose Garuda's C01K, replace Ifrit's C01K. Again, I'm doing C0K1. And then do T0K1. And replace T0K1. Alright, so now these should be finalized. Final versions, pretty much. So, Titan. So now what I have is a version of Ifrit, or if I export this, I have Ifrit and Titan files that are swapped with Garuda's. The animations files, the TMB files are swapped, the sound files are swapped, and the AVFX files are swapped and edited. So there will be no visual effects spillover if I then mod Garuda while having one of these mods installed for Titan or Ifrit. And that's how you limit visual effects spillover. The same thing is applicable to things like player abilities. If you're going to move one ability to another and you're copying the animations and the TMB files, use the TMB files as best you can. In fact, let me show you an example. I'm going to summon Garuda. And I'm going to perform Emerald Catastrophe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to now switch Emerald Catastrophe with Ruby Catastrophe, and I'm going to give it the glyph of Ruby Write with the visual effects of Ruby Write. And just for fun, I'm also going to change the animation file to my current favorite one. Let's see. Let me find it again. So here's the action.pap, which is on Ruby Write. I'm going to use, well, let's do, that's right, I'm editing Emerald Write. So let's do Emerald Write, select the action.pap. I'm doing this one too. And let me see if I can find the code again. Pretty sure it was this one. I think this is one of my favorite animations to use for writes. So let's start with, oh wait, I said I was doing catastrophe, didn't I? Okay, that's fine. Let's do catastrophe. So let's do Ruby catastrophe, and I'm going to select that, and then do Emerald catastrophe. Select the end there, and now I'm going to come here, and I'm going to swap the catastrophe visual effects. So I want Ruby catastrophe's visual effects, and to Emerald catastrophe, whoops, wrong field, with Emerald catastrophe's visual effects. So right now what I have is Emerald catastrophe with just the hit visual effect, the visual effect that appears on a target. I want to also use Ruby Write's glyph on Emerald catastrophe. Now, one way you could go about this is doing a visual effect edit where you export the timeline and import it onto Emerald catastrophe and time it right and get all the scheduling right and all that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a visual effect file. Here's how you do that. So I'm going to start with the write, Ruby Write, and I'm going to select the visual effect. I'm going to take this and copy it. I'm going to paste it in here. And I'm going to change the T to a C. So now, I've just made a visual effect file. Literally that easy. I'm going to, and I'll show you. I'll show you how this works. So I've got Emerald Catastrophe here. I've got my sound at 6. The visual effect plays at 6. But I'm going to delay that. So I'm going to add a visual effect. So here's this. I'm going to paste my file path there. Need to change bind point 2 and bind point 4 to -1. Again, I don't know what all the other ones really indicate or do, but that's just a setting I see on all these, on lots of visual effects, like right here. And that seems to be what works. So I've got this. Now I'm going to set it up again. And also, I'm going to add a sound effect. Specifically, I'm going to add a sound effect for Ruby Write's cast. Let me pull that up in my Ability Visual Effects. So here's my Ability Visual Effects screen that I have saved. Just lots of files I have saved. Oh, I said Visual Effects, SFX. And so here's the cast sound effect. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it here. Need to change this to 0. Need to change this to 1. Update. Visual effect has been set. This visual effect is still Ruby Writes. So again, to prevent visual effect bleed over, I'm going to copy Emerald Writes into this field for Ruby Write. Alright, And I think I'm going to also, I think the delay is usually 15 seconds for Ruby, right? So I want to delay it a little bit. We'll see how that looks. Alright. So there's Ruby Catastrophe, but on Emerald Catastrophe. And it has the sound effect, the casting sound effects, or the initial sound effects for Ruby right there. The detonation sound effects for Ruby right on the target. Now let's edit the animation. So they're actually, I was wrong about the animation I wanted to use. I think I want to say this is the correct one. Actually, I can be sure of which one I like, because I like to use Ruin 4's animation on the catastrophes, and I'm gonna have to pull up the TMB file for that. So let's do Ruin 4. I'm going to select and find the animation code here. Okay, so it's 3C. So CBBM, MGC, SUN, 3C. So I'm going to copy that over into this animation. There we go. Now let's do group pose. So as you see, now I have Ruby right on Emerald right. I'm sorry, I have Ruby Catastrophe on Emerald Catastrophe with a Ruby Rights glyph as a separate visual effect file, and with Ruby Catastrophes sound effects, Ruby Rights sound effects. There will be no visual effect bleed over because it all uses Emerald Catastrophes visual effect files, including one I created for Emerald Catastrophe. And that's how you do an animation swap without visual effect bleed over, and that's how you create a visual effect file path. Pretty much, I think I've covered most of the things I actually use the TMB editor for. I I do use the PAP editor to import edited player animations too. But that's a bit more complex. It's something that I'll have to cover in another video. Anyways, hope to see more. Have fun with it.